has its own vernacular, its own words that you don't use anywhere else. And also each office is run a little bit different as far as how things are kept, something very simple. If I told y'all 2022-02-001, you know that's the year, that's about all it means to you. To everybody in my office, that means that's the first file in February. So every year, every month we start off the year, the month, and the file number, and continue going. So on day one, you wouldn't know that. So for me to sit down and say, hey, y'all been here with Mary Ann, you know all these great things, let's start pre-closing today, and here's your file number, it doesn't mean anything to you. And I'm originally from Virginia, went to law school in Ohio, went to the Air Force Academy in Colorado, did 10 years active duty before I came down here. So, and knowing that they're just different terms, they're different vernacular that you're using, and it takes a while to understand what those terms are. If I say something like RTV, Mary Ann told you what RTV means, title now is vested in. We don't know those things in the beginning, so you start and you learn. I will say this, I've learned over the years, the first person that I worked for or with, he was big into advertising. So this business is all about marketing, and you can't market this business as a closing attorney the way that I would market if I was a dentist. If I'm a dentist, I want somebody who's close by. It may be word of mouth, but it's close by, they have good reviews. I've probably in 20 years gotten less than 10 closings because somebody saw our name on the internet somewhere. Because most times the loan officer knows somebody, the real estate agent knows somebody, the broker knows somebody. So it's all about building those relationships up. So with that being said, I always tell the people that I hire in my office that you are the face of the company. You all do all the interacting. You're the person they're gonna see first, last, and they're gonna complain about you. And I'm gonna tell you now, no matter what you do, you're gonna be complained about, and hopefully you have a boss, a person that you reported to that understands that you're right 99% of the time. And the way I could phrase it to my office is, think of it this way. We are at the bottom of the totem pole, unfortunately. There are a lot of closing attorneys out there. Agents get one deal. For every deal that agent has, the loan officer has 3 deals. For every 3 deals the loan officer has, the closing attorney has 9 deals. So we're working on 9 deals at the same time. That agent has 1 deal. So when they call your office, they're gonna talk to you any kind of way. They want their check right now. They're more concerned about, hey, do you have my wiring instructions? And I'll say, you know, I don't have your wiring instructions, but most importantly, I don't have your contract, or I don't have your instructions to the closing attorney. So I don't even know what your conditions are. I can assume 6 and 6, and me being the funny person that I am, if you don't send me instructions to the closing attorney, I assume you don't want to get paid, so I put 0 and 0, and they call back in a rage, and unfortunately, the person answering the phone catches it first, and I'm sure y'all learned this. Most closing offices are kind of set up the same way. You have the receptionist that screen the phone calls, then you have the pre-closer. The pre-closer's job, we'll go over that in a little bit, talk what they do in my office. Then we have the closer, and then we have the post-closer. So they don't call the attorney. By the time they get to me, that means they've been to 2 or 3 people, and now they're really upset. And I love when they call and say, I need to speak to your boss. And I said, well, my mom is busy right now, so I'm not sure who to pass you on to. I say these things jokingly, but they are true. You all, if you come into this field, you're going to be yelled at. Am I wrong? People, my paralegals get upset all the time. Like, Leonard, I'm tired of this person talking to me that way. I'm not sure what y'all's backgrounds are, but I've learned for me, the best backgrounds I found that I can train people come from the food industry because working in restaurants. If you can be a host or a bartender and deal with all these people walking in and they're always right, even if they order the wrong thing, they know what they ordered, they're gonna yell, they're gonna scream, and you're wrong, you're gonna talk to your manager all the time. That's kind of what being the pre-closer is. And I've learned my pre-closers after a while get burned out on being yelled at, never right. And the other favorite one is, what week are y'all in as far as?
This is week 4.
Week 4 of 6?
Yes.
Okay. So you all understand what title orders are at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing more frustrating than for my office to order titles and those things not closed. I count it every now and then, and I probably over time have accumulated 4 or 5 file cabinets of those drawers right there of files that are not closed. So that's probably, let's just say 500 files that have not closed over the years. It's probably more than that. This industry for a closing attorney is different because most closing attorneys don't make people pay for their titles up front. If I just take 500 times my average cost of 150 per title, that's how much money we wasted in titles that have never done anything with. So now my pre-closers have sat there and they've entered all this information in the system. Doesn't matter which system you're using, we use AIMS for Title Logics, which is a Stewart-based system. Right now, I'm in the process of switching over to Qualia, which everybody supposedly loves.
We're in Qualia Week. Yes.
We do. We really do.
Oh, well, y'all know more about it than I do. I'm still in the infancy stages of setting on Qualia. I will say, and I may ramble, that's fine. If you have any questions, raise your hands. I promise by the end it all makes sense. I hope. It makes sense to me anyway. I'm the one telling the story. When Rob and I first started back in 01, 02, Title Logics was brand new. It was called AIM for Windows Title Logics. And at that point, it was the only Windows-based system, which meant I could travel with my laptop anywhere and bring a printer along with me, and we could make changes to the settlement statement right then and there. This is how I know I'm getting old. When I first started doing closings, no packages were overnighted. No packages were emailed, they were all overnighted. And there was a change, they were faxing over that one page that changed to us, or to delay the whole closing. There was no, oh, here's your email, here's your package, and you can make changes right now. It wasn't that way. So we had to get packages via overnight, had the typewriters in the office, make any changes to them, type the dates on there, get them signed, scan it all in, or not scan, fax it all back. And my worst closing ever, I was down on the other side of Georgia, down by the airport in the subdivision, because I was marketing myself as saying we could do closings on site, so they took me up on that. Did not know when I got there, they had one of those old fax machines that did like a page a minute. So at 100 pages, 3 hours later, still trying to get funding.
Oh my God.
I don't think they invited me back for any more closings.
Oh no.
So I said that it was a Windows-based system. I met Qualia, I think 2 years ago at the aquarium. They're doing a CLE, and everybody seems to like it. And I will say one of the drawbacks is for us, as far as the system we have right now, is they're not integrated with all the systems like Chicago Title, Investor, Old Republic, Qualia, and I believe even this other everybody loves. What's the main one? It's been around 40 years.
First.
No, not Software. Landtech.
Landtech, sorry.
When I first started, we started with Landtech. Landtech was all DOS based, and you had to store your servers in your office. So you back your own stuff up and your responsibility. AIMS was everything was window based. There was no backing up. It was a monthly subscription. The bad part is people didn't actually buy into it. It's very popular down in Florida and Texas, but not so much here in Georgia. Qualia, I hear, is very good once you put information in one time, where the Chicago Title, whatever title company you're using, it pulls it all, so therefore you're not retyping numbers and pulling stuff back from different places. So that's one of the great things about Qualia, and also the clients can see what's going on. Have pros and cons about that. Agents want to oversee all the time what's going on, and they want to be in charge. So as I was stating earlier, the agent's going to talk down to you, the loan officer's going to talk down to you. And where I was going with this, loan officers get in the habit of ordering title before the appraisal was back, or before they have it clear to close. So all those files I had that didn't close because there's an issue that the person didn't qualify for a loan. But now as my pre-closer, if you sit there and you've done all these commitments and your stuff doesn't close, how do you feel? Like you've done nothing, you've all this work for nothing, and the one person sitting over here that you put off to last, he's ready to close today, and you haven't done his title yet. It's not your fault, because you have 15 other titles ordered in front of his, they just happen not to close. He doesn't understand that, the agent doesn't understand that, so they call doing what? Yelling and screaming. Agents and lenders don't understand that the order City of Atlanta water bills. They put a turnaround time of 10 days on there. I can't do a title, I technically can't do a title commitment until I have all the information. If it takes 10 days for that water bill to come back, now the title's incomplete. And my favorite one, I just had this full discussion about this. Have y'all talked much about HOA letters? And ordering HOA letters? How do you order an HOA letter? Who knows? It depends on the HOA and which community they're using right now. And a lot of times the seller doesn't even know who their HOA is. They just write a check once a month, send it off. They have no idea how to get in contact with the HOA people. How long does it take for this letter to come back? It could be 2 days, it could be a week, depending on what's going on. So when this stuff is, you're doing this as a pre-closer, who's yelling at you because you have not gotten the title commitment out yet? The agents and the lenders. So that's the bad part of the job. If you like people, it's a great job because you will always be interacting with people. I mean, in my view, every closing, you have a buyer, seller, two buyers, two sellers, husband, wife. You have a loan officer, you have 2 agents, so you're meeting 8 people at If you're doing 40 closes a month, 40 times 8, you met 320 people that month. They will all know you next time you go to the store and you don't recognize them because it's a factory just coming through that they all know who you are. Another thing about HOAs, who pays for the HOA letter? That's always an argument because agents don't fill the forms out correctly. There's a box they check, buyer responsible, seller responsible. What they want is the attorney to pay for the HOA letter. And these HOA letters cost between $100, I've seen $600. Why do I want to spend $600 on a closing for somebody else that may not occur because somebody backed up? There's an issue. But what happens all the time is they decide they want to close on Friday. I call them on Tuesday saying, hey, HOA letter has not been ordered yet. We call the HOA place. They said, well, it's gonna be a rush fee of $250. They want us to pay the $250 because we didn't order it on time. They forget they didn't give us information until Monday. Everybody in this job has amnesia when it comes to what they forgot to do. The agents all think they're the cream of the crop, and all they're doing is filling out numbers, and they fill something. If they need to check a box here, it's our fault. So just remember, in this job, in the closing office, it will always be your fault. Take it with a grain of salt, smile, and move on. Or do what I do all the time. I put the phone on mute, said a lot of nice things to them, turn it off and say, okay, you're right, and how can we fix the problem?
Yeah.
Because the bottom line is, we all have one goal in common, and that's to close the loan. If we don't close a loan, guess what? Nobody gets a check. If you don't get a check, nobody's happy. So that's why I say my opening statement was, I like people who are customer service based because that's truly what you're doing. We are Burger King, we will do it your way, or at least let you think we're doing it your way until we can get to where we need to be at the end of the day. So that's my dissertation of 5 minutes on pre-closing. Post-closing is a little bit different in my eyes. Post-closing is where I find people who sometimes don't like people. They don't have to interact with people. I had a receptionist one time, and I told, we were doing something, and I asked her a question. I said, do you like people? She said, not really. Do you like talking on the phone? Not really. So let's have a heart-to-heart. Is this actually the correct job for you? Not really. Thank you, you fired yourself. That's all I wanted. We're on the same page now. This is not the job for you. And I have a girlfriend, and right now she's an attorney also. She's working in my office, and it's just the first time because of COVID that she's seen people that work for themselves. She decided, I think I want to work in your office, but I don't like people. I want to be your post-closer. Like, I don't even want you in my office, but the post-closing also, no, we're not doing this today. Well, I tell jokes also, and the more you laugh, the funnier I think I am, so please don't laugh. But post-closing, your job is everybody's job is important. I'm not sure how Marion has this class structured for you all. I tell my students when I teach at Emory, they're paying for education. When you're doing real estate, it's an education. Every time there's a mistake made by the attorney or anybody, guess who pays for it? The attorney does. Every mistake costs money. And it's little things that you don't even pay attention to that cost money. For example, legal descriptions. I don't trust myself to do legal descriptions. If I hire a gentleman right here, says, sir, you gonna type this legal description in? After you finish typing it in, I'm gonna have you hand the person behind you, have them proofread it, and you're both going to initial that legal description that it is correct. Because it sounds very minor, but these legal, and you all know what a legal description is, correct? They come back, they may be 40 years old, 30 years old, handwritten, or it's been copied, and they're hard to read. We enlarge as best we can, and we think it's right. Well, it was the letter, we put down an 8, and it was actually a 5, you couldn't tell. When you do that on a warranty deed, you transferred the wrong lot. So you sold a lot to somebody that person did not own, you recorded a lien against the wrong lot. It's an easy fix. We could do a scrivener's affidavit saying, this is the mistake we made, our fault, let's move forward. Well, on the low end, I have to record that scrivener's affidavit, and all recordings now cost $25, so they changed that. So that wasn't a big mistake. I do it electronically, $25, pay the fee, we move on, all is happy. Well, in my other practice in my life, I also do bankruptcy law, or do bankruptcies, representing the debtors, people who own houses. And this all started back in 2005 and 6 when Mr. Kazakowski and I first started. Every loan was an 80-20 split. You know what that is? So an 80-20 split, every closing was 2 closings. So it was just he and I, and we were doing 120 closings a month between the two of us because of this 80-20 split. So we were there till midnight, we sit in our chairs and laugh. I had no kids, he had no kids, we weren't married, like, I don't wanna do this for the rest of my life. And the crash came, like, man, I wish I was busy again, so never complain about being busy, because it could be just the opposite. But when you make that mistake, I was talking about that 8 was actually 5, that person then files bankruptcy. When they file bankruptcy, they say, hey, I own this property over here, and the trustee, being the thorough person he is, he pulls all the documents, he catches that mistake. Well, actually, you don't own that because they gave you the wrong lot over here, so therefore, you don't own anything. So therefore, I am now gonna step in, fix the problem, and now I own this property. I'm gonna sell this property and give the proceeds to your unsecured creditors. Who just took the loss in that situation? The bank did. The bank's gonna come back to what? The title insurance that we issued, the title policy that we issued, we put in the wrong legal description. And now it's a title claim. Title claims are kind of like one and done. You have a real bad one, you can't get E&O insurance as the attorney, so it's an issue. So that small mistake has now grown to a very large mistake, and it was truly an honest mistake. Nobody was being lazy, it was just hard to read, but those are the kind of errors that you make in doing a transaction. So the post-closer's job is to verify, A, the legal descriptions are correct. B, most counties, now not all counties, require us to put the parcel ID number, we all know what that is, right? On the deeds, on all warranty deeds and security deeds. You put the wrong parcel on there, sounds very minor again, the taxes are now in the wrong person's name, this person's taxes are getting paid, this person's taxes are being double paid, someone's getting a refund, there's a parcel over here all by itself, no taxes are getting paid at all, now it goes to auction, they're auctioned off, and that's a class by itself. But that one should have been a 7, or the 7 was a 1. Once again, an honest mistake that somebody made, and it all falls back on the closing attorney. So I joke and I play a lot, but this job requires attention to detail, and that detail is not there, then there is a monetary loss that a lot of times falls back on us, our E&O, or the title companies, and then if I can't write title insurance, then I can't do closings. I mean, that's the thing that we as a closing attorney provide, is the title insurance that all the lenders want. They require us to have title insurance, so that's the thing that we're doing. If I can't do that, then it's a problem. I tell my customers all the time at closing, if I don't remember your name or your face, it was a great closing. And I don't wanna know you, so I'm not being rude, I just don't wanna know you because it was a great closing. If I know who you are firsthand, like, oh yeah, I remember your closing, it's a closing that will not go away. It keeps coming back, back, and back. And we don't get paid by the hour, we get paid by the closing. Once your closing is done, I wanna be done. If I'm still talking to you 3, 4 weeks, years after the fact, it's a drain on me and the staff. So the post-closer's job is to verify that the payoffs are correct, that these payoffs are sent out in a timely fashion. And do you all know what an FHA loan is versus a conventional loan? FHA loans have this thing that I hate, and it is per diem. There is no per diem on an FHA loan. So if my closing is January 31st at 3 o'clock, and my payoff's only good till February 1st, either they add a full month of per diem on there, which the seller's gonna hate, or try to get that payoff out as soon as possible. And most attorneys, all attorneys are different. My preference in my office, I truly hate sending wires. I like sending checks and overnighting checks to the lender because I'm sending a copy of that payoff with the check, and therefore I have a paper trail. I have an associate one time that was paying off a loan, let's just say Wells Fargo, and she called in, she gave them the property address, she gave them the loan number, and the loan number was off by 1 digit, and they paid the wrong loan off.
Yikes.
It was a mistake, but the banks try to have protocols in place because they ask for the name, the property address, and the loan number. If all 3 of those didn't match up, they should have said, hey, there's a disconnect here, but they didn't do that. So they paid off the wrong loan, and it became a nightmare for her to try to fix, because once the loan is paid off the bank's eyes, that loan's closed out. They don't have the ability to reinstate a closed out loan, per se. So they had to fix that problem. And mentioning that, if y'all talk about e-recording now versus mailing documents in.
Yeah.
So usually the job of the post-closer was, after everything is signed, the post-closer would then take the package, make sure it was notarized and dated properly, send the funding docs back to the bank, get funding approval, the closer would then cut checks, and now we would disperse all those checks. When it's all said and done, at the end of the day, there should be 2 checks in my mind in the file. There should be a check for the title insurance company and the check for the recording, because the documents have not been sent to recording yet. If there are any other checks in the file, when you get audited, it's gonna be a problem. That means you didn't pay a transfer tax, you didn't pay off a loan, you didn't pay insurance on the property. There should never be a check in a file once you're said and done. That's the job of the post closer. The post closer's job is also to make sure that the payoffs are correct. If the payoffs are good through the day, and I didn't add per diem to it as a person doing the settlement statement, they need to come back and say, hey, there's a problem. And this is a very simple one, but hear me out for a second. My payoff is good through, today's date is February the 4th. My payoff is good through February the 5th. We close tomorrow at 5 o'clock. I don't have a chance to overnight that payoff, but I call the checks at the closing. I give the seller his check. My post closer tells me, hey, the payoff is short by, let's just say $100 per day. The seller already has his check. Now I need to add per diem for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Who's paying that difference? The closing attorney is. So, simple mistake once again, but all these mistakes cost money. And Mr. Kazakowski and myself, we've had mistakes that came back to haunt us. The biggest mistake that we had was a title company missed a lien on the property. The seller came in and stated that they owned it free and clear, sold the property, and got their check. Well, what occurred that we weren't aware of was 2 or 3, this property closed 4 or 5 times. The house burned down. When the house burned down, there was a loan in place with, let's just say, SunTrust. SunTrust never got paid off. So that vacant lot got sold, resold, a new house built. When did SunTrust step in and say they owned the house? Once it was rebuilt. And because we missed that lien on that property, that became an E&O claim against us. And I mean, they negotiated back and forth, so we didn't pay the full thing, but that was a mistake that was made. Was it an avoidable mistake? I hate to say it this way, for 2 years, Mr. Kazakowski and I were the center of attention at Stewart Title. They do these big conventions every year, and they were just saying things, Monday morning quarterbacking, things that you can miss or you should have caught, but it's hard to catch. And we're like, really, y'all gonna embarrass us again? Nobody else knew it was our loan, but we knew it was our loan. Like, we didn't know that. And going back, there was a forged notary in the beginning, showing that the lien had been released. These are just things that we don't know to look at. The title examiner missed it, Mr. Kazakowski and I missed it, or one of us missed it, whoever looked at that file, so things are missed. With that being said, the biggest challenge we have today is fraud, and there's a lot of fraud going on as far as wire fraud, people trying to get payoffs sent different places. Luckily, knock on wood, I've not had it happen in our office yet, but I've had instances where people have called and said, hey, I had a closing, and I got closing instructions from the attorney. I wired my funds and found out that wasn't the closing attorney's account I sent it to. I sent it somewhere else. I send wires daily. My mind said, well, sir, you sent your funds overseas. They gave you, when you send a wire, you have what's known as a routing number. When they go overseas, you have an IBAN number. You send it overseas, the IBAN number is gone. And a wire is like cash. If I wire money to Ms. King's account right now, I can't pull it back. It's like we hand her cash, she runs out the door. That's what a wire is. Some people try to call it ACH. Closing attorneys are not allowed to accept ACHs. So there's what's called an ACH block on the account. An ACH is like a wire, but it's transferred from money from one account to the other. The problem with ACH is you can recall an ACH for up to 90 days. So it's kind of like you put a stop payment on it. So these little things you learn as you're going through the business. So I've been doing this for 20 years, and I'm still learning, and these things still are costing me money, or it's education. Another very simple one, taxes. You talk about Vesta at all? Tax liens? Vesta has tax liens. Well, every closing we order a tax bill. I don't know when Vesta is conducting a tax sale or when the county will sell a tax bill. I order taxes, I get a payoff that's good through the 15th. I mail my check in, and think I'm perfectly on time. A year later it comes back, hey, there's a lien against my house. Well, no, we paid that bill. Find out the day we closed the loan, they sold it to Vesta. Or Vesta had a tax sale that day we were unaware of, and the way these tax sales work, it's like bidding. So therefore they bid it from $1,000 to $5,000. Then you can get the excess funds back, but now it's another title claim, or you as the attorney are scrambling around trying to fix this problem. And what I find yourself doing most of the times is scrambling around trying to fix problems because you really don't have title claims, because at that point, the more title claims you have, the more your E&O insurance goes up, or at some point you may no longer have E&O insurance. Okay? So we talked about the pre-closer, the receptionist, and the closer. The person that controls all of this is what I call the closer. The closer is the person that puts together the settlement statement, and the settlement statement is the roadmap for all the numbers, and it's changed names over the years. We used to call it the HUD 1, then it was the Alta statement, and now it's the CD, and a closing disclosure. There's a buyer's closing disclosure, a seller's closing disclosure. And in my mind, all they've really done is made more work for the closing attorney, and they don't allow us to charge any more money for this because we have to prepare the CD, which is the buyer's numbers. And it's silly we have to prepare because we're the ones cutting checks, but we're actually following the lender's closing instructions. Then the seller needs a CD that they sign, just has their side on there. Then we also have to prepare an Alta statement, and the Alta statement is needed because the agents want to get paid, and they need something signed by the buyer and seller showing the commissions were paid, this is the sales price, and it has both sides on there. So that one document has now gone to 4 documents that we're producing, that we're getting signed, and emailing and mailing all over the place. And the minute we start changing any fees, they get upset with us because this is competition. So all closing attorneys kind of have the same average fees. And so this has changed over time as far as it used to be $450, then $550. Then we started having what they call junk fees, title commitment fee, post-closing fee, overnight fee, a wire fee, CPL fee. Some attorney, well, what I started doing was I just lumped them all together and said, this is my fee, there are no other fees. Some other attorneys still break it down. And what a lot of clients do is say, hey, will you match fees? Because I just closing attorney up here gave me this list of fees over here. So you end up matching fees. I mean, it's still a competition as far as fees are concerned. What I've learned is there are no, for agents, they all get 3%. For lenders, it's all 1%. And the reason, and this is before y'all's time, when I first started, the reason this started was because there are 2 types of title insurance. I think y'all probably talk about these, owner's policy and a lender's policy. Today, we do what's called a simultaneous issue, meaning that if you buy a property, you buy owner's policy, you pay whatever that rate is, then your lender's policy is a flat $150. So if your house is $2 million, your owner's policy is $6,000, your lender's policy is $150. If your house is $2,000, you get an owner's policy for $150, lender's policy is still $150. It's called a book rate. It's dictated by the insurance agency of Georgia. Does that make sense to everybody? You want to talk about that? Well, up to like 2009, we could charge whatever we wanted to charge. So our quote book rate back then was $3 per 1,000 for a loan policy, $4 per 1,000 for an owner's policy. So for $1 million loan, we would charge $4,000. And then if the house cost $1.2 million, we'd charge another $6,000 on top of that. So that became a $10,000 closing. Well, that $10,000 closing now became a overall $5,000 closing because of title insurance, because we can no longer dictate what those rates are. So a lot of times people ask me, will you match fees or what are your fees, because they're still used to it, or they recall the time when attorneys could dictate what the rates were. If it's something that you really like, Stewart Title wanted a bare minimum. I could charge you the bare minimum and be done with you if I wanted to. Or if you annoyed me, I could add another $1,000 to it. Nobody cared. You could charge whatever you wanted. Does that make sense to everyone? So we still have those things going on. And earlier I was talking about the way that lenders order titles and not appraisals. When you order an appraisal, you pay for it up front. They always have to pay for their appraisals up front. They don't pay for titles the same way. So therefore, these lenders, a lot of times, will order titles from, let's just say, this is a closing firm, this is a closing firm, and that's a closing firm. I've seen lenders order title, the same title from 3 places at the same time, and use the one whoever comes back first. Yours come back first, you get the closing, you're happy. You don't know about this person over here or over here. They just call you and you say, oh, that deal fell through, we're not closing. But what happened was they ordered title from somebody else, and that one came back first. And there was a lot of that going on also.
Wow.
So, those are the things that I have learned in my 20 years of being a closing attorney, summed up in about 40 minutes. Title logics, so I can assure to you all, nobody, I think of Mary Ann's people, I think we're the only ones here that use it. Like I said, it's big in Florida, and so we're actually moving away from it. It has not been a bad system, and fortunately, unfortunately, because I've been on it for so long, I know at the back of my hand. The new one, we're starting to use it, starting to see it a little bit, qualia. A lot of people learn qualia, but I will say this though, if you understand the basic of what a title commitment is, it's just where you put the stuff in, how does it pull it? If you're doing a settlement statement, how do you open up the lines and where you put the lines in? And most of these systems now are automated, meaning that my fees are the same. So therefore, it pulls all the attorney's fees that I charge And then when I press a button, it automatically calculates what the title insurance rates are based on who I write with. It used to be that we used to have a lot of paper. At one point, Mr. Kozakowski and I had a 8-foot by 20-foot storage unit. And those file cabinets all down the side, all up the middle, and we had to keep these files for 7 years. Therefore, I wanted some storage, and we weren't scanning back then. It was all printed out. So we had to keep a copy of the entire package that was done, the lender's policy, the owner's policy, the title commitment, the title request, the title package that came back, and a copy of all the checks. So every file was about that thick in these legal size filing cabinets, and we kept this for years. And one day I woke up and said, 10 years times $300, you know what? Either we're firmware or we're scanning today. So that's now been condensed. But I said it to say, is when we first started, it made it an easier way to try to keep stuff together. Now, because of quality and the ability to scan, all stuff is scanned to a hard drives, and something very simple. Not trying to go actually purchase a home. We don't even give copy packages anymore. Our copy package is either one or two things. And I have a bunch of discs for y'all in the car, and I'll bring them back down. I have a little floppy disk with a business card, and out of it pops a USB drive. We stick that in the computer, save all the documents to that, and hand that to them, and we move on. Up until about a year and a half ago, we're giving everybody a CD. Well, computers don't have CDs anymore, so we stopped doing that. Well, I learned recently, they don't have USBs anymore either. So now we have to do email. Every now and then, we get that one person who comes and say, I don't have email, I don't have this, I want a hard copy printed out. I've purchased homes before, I've never sat back and read that stuff, you're not gonna read it. And the newest tech challenge we run into is everybody wants a, where is my original copy of my warranty deed? Well, guess what? It doesn't exist anymore. You sign the warranty deed, I get it notarized, I go sit at my computer, I scan it in, I upload it to Cobb County sends it back, says this has been accepted. So the original one I have in my hand right here has what notations on it. It has nothing. I print out a copy, well no, I want the blue ink one. The blue ink one does not have the recording information on it because they're not recording the blue ink one anymore. So the need to have all of these originals and all this paper has gone away. I did find one, I did a closing 2 weeks ago, and I went online to upload the documents and record, and I had to call the courthouse and said, oh yeah, we don't do online recording, actually mailed to the courthouse. So I can say since COVID has started, that's been the first deed I mailed in 2 years. So most things are electronic now, and there's a time gap. Cobb County, DeKalb County, probably upload your stuff in two days at the most. Fulton County, a week. Clayton County, 6 weeks, a month, a year out. I'm still waiting for stuff to come back. So there's no time frame, but like people are used to buying cars. You buy a car and you pay it off, you get your title immediately. If you pay cash for a house, you want your title, but I don't have a title for you because I have to wait for it to come back from the county. Well, the quote come back from the county now is me getting an email stating it's been accepted. And then I forward that to them and they say, okay, when I get the original in the mail, I have to explain to them, there is no original to send back to you because all I have is that same thing I just emailed to you. All I can do is print out what I just sent to you and mail that to you. If you want me to do that, I can do that, but it's a waste of my time and money. But every now and then you get that person who actually requires that also. So the closer's job, as I was stating, their job is to make sure all the money is on the settlement statement. So I call this whole thing, we're all humans, we're gonna make errors, so therefore we put checks and balances in place to make sure that everything's checked at least twice. So it starts off something very simple. The receptionist, when the title request comes in, I have you look at the contract to make sure that our name is in the contract. Then I have you go online to USPS to make sure that the agents have put the property in the right county. Why is that important? Because when I order taxes, there's certain vendors that only do certain counties. We try to send it to the correct place. I use certain title examiners for certain counties. I make sure that goes to the correct place also. So I verify that the address is correct. And something very simple. Is it southeast, northwest? Those things have to be in the actual system. So we verify that by the mailing address on USPS. Bless you. We order title. Another big thing is important. We order title with, make sure that the seller's name, the way they're shown on the title is how we have it in our system. My name is Leonard R. Medley III. If I buy my house as Leonard Medley and Leonard R. Medley III sells a house, I really didn't sell my house because the names don't match. The names have to match exactly. So therefore my receptionist will put all the stuff in the system based on the contract on a refinance on the title request we get from the lender When the title comes back, it is the job of the pre-closer to make sure that the names are correct. It's the job of the pre-closer to make sure that the title, that the commitment is put in correctly, or the legal's put in correctly. She then take that file, give it to the receptionist who will verify the legal. The closer will come back and put a third set of eyes on those things to make sure the names are correct, the legal is correct, and we are signing off on that. And it's not being over redundant, it's to make sure that nothing is missed, because if something is missed or incorrect, it's gonna cause a problem down the road or line. So we can catch it right now. I'd rather catch it now and find out about it 4 or 5 years later. Rob and I still get phone calls. Hey, you closed our loan back in 2003. We just realized the legal was wrong, or the parcel ID was switched around. A, I don't have the file. I don't know how to fix it from 20 years ago. And how did you just find this was the problem?
Right. Yeah.
So, but those phone calls do come in, and this is how other attorneys see what I do. Oh, I want to be a closing attorney. They think all we do is say, sign here, sign here, sign here, write on checks and go home. And the way I explain it to them, I said, let me ask you this question. The average price of a house right now in Georgia is $200,000. So my liability on this closing is, if I make a mistake, is $200,000. That's my exposure that I have. If on this closing, I'm gonna make $1,500, how I pay everybody, overhead and all that, I made $1,000. Would you bet $200,000 in Vegas to make $1,000? That's the job of a closing attorney. Any questions? And I still need help, so please call. But like I said, all offices are different as far as how they're run, their checks and balances. I only know the ones that I've seen, and that's why I like hiring people sometimes that have experience. Well, I like hiring people that have experience, because therefore I can learn things that came from another place. Because when I first started, it was, like I said, Mr. Kozakowski and I, and the person that I worked for, I started in February. He and I went out on our own in September, so I was only did like 7 or 8 months before I went out on my own. So I didn't know a lot. It was always calling people that I knew were closing attorneys, asking questions, finding out, calling Marianne or calling somebody else, learning what's going on. Over the past 10 years, most of the people that I've hired, 'cause at one point I think Rob and I had 4 different offices, and with people in each office, we were training people in the main office or processing out of the main office and have attorneys driving around. So we were hiring people from different locations, and we were teaching them how to do the different jobs. So this is a great chance for y'all to learn as far as having a knowledge base to come in to try to move forward with. Okay? And we all get attitudes sometimes, so the attorney gets yelled at, they come back and they yell at you all. Don't take it personal. The next morning, 5 minutes later, it'll be fine. I think one of the benefits, I like having a small office. We've been, I won't say large, but a medium size, is that it's like a big family sometimes, so therefore families have their fights, they have their arguments, but in the end, we're still there, because what I don't like is, and I've had this happen a few times, that's not my job, I don't do that. Well, this is a small office, there's 6 of us in here, there's 8 of us in here, we all cover for each other. I mean, at our largest, I think we had 3 pre-closers, 3 post-closers, and we had 2 floaters, so the floaters could do whatever we needed them to do. I had a floater ask me one day, I said, hey, I need you to, everybody used to hate this job. They used to hate sending back titles. So we sent stuff on the recording, it would come back, it would take the title policy, the owner's policy, and the deed, and mail it to the borrower. I mean, that stuff would stack up like this over time. You just doing envelopes. It was tedious, boring work, and the girl said, why am I doing this? Why can't she do it? I said, well, because I asked you to do it. I'm not gonna do it. Well, I guess you quit then. She grabbed her stuff and left.
Wow.
Oh.
Over processing deeds?
Over processing deeds.
Wow.
She wanna process deeds.
Wow.
Oh, you find,
I like it, you don't have to talk to anybody.
Yeah, it's just busy work.
Yeah.
every person has a thing, like when Rob and I were together, Rob has a dry sense of humor, like being about to do something himself, so Rob would do all the post-closing. I like people, so therefore I would do the pre-closing. So therefore I was saw pre-closing, he saw post-closing, we both did the closing, we both did the HUDs, but that was our separation. So therefore the ladies that were doing post-closing, he'd work with, pre-closing I'd work with. That's just kind of how we managed the office. So everybody has things they like and don't like, but that's how you have to break this stuff up. But then I had another lady, I asked her to do something. That's not my job. So well, the funny thing is, when it's time to get paid, you want your check. So you need to do these things because we're all here to help each other. So I mean, that's why I like the small office environment, because we all have a common goal. Remember, nobody gets paid until the deal closes. Once the deal closes, we're all there cleaning up the mess. And when Rob and I were together, the gentleman we worked with, I won't forget this day, it was May of 2002. We had 3 attorneys and we closed 25 loans in one day. And our staff was truly upset with us and like, why'd y'all take all this on? So back then, I can talk about this, there are different types of loans. You have refinances, you have first-time home buyers, and you have investment properties. I mean, those are the 3 pockets that you deal with. When I first started, for the first year and a half, we never did for the first year, we never did a purchase. All we did was refinances for American Freedom and American Equity. And their end of the month was the 15th, so therefore they got all they could by the 15th, so therefore they get on that paycheck. And they sent all these packages over, and we were closing loans, and I will not do this again. We were closing loans at midnight. We were closing loans to the point where we had closing packages and no HUDs. Like, sign here, just sign. And the next day we would do the HUDs and come back and show them how much money they were getting back because the staff just couldn't do that. So, I mean, in my eyes, if I have a pre-closer and a post-closer and a receptionist, we can easily do 30 loans a month. The problem is if they're spread out, you're fine. The issue becomes when they want to close 15 of those on one day. Now you don't have the manpower to do that, or nor can you ramp up to do that. So doing closings is easy. There are 20 days in a month. We can actually do 2 closings a day and do 40 in a month. And they one at 12 o'clock and one at 2 o'clock. They give us the rest of the day to clean stuff up. We'd all be happy. That's not how this business works. So I tell everybody, and my girlfriend understands, like, I'm like a fireman. I can't control when the fire comes, but when it comes, we have to put it out. So therefore, you will hear the lies all the time. The moving trucks in the driveway, the rate expires today, the seller's going out of town, the buyer's out of town, the dog is sick. There's all these excuses why you have to close you have to close this right now, but I don't have a package. And when my office used to get mad with me, or still gets mad with me, I've learned they want to pass the blame. So, and you also see this, a lot of times the buyer and seller, you may never see your loan officer, you apply it online. Your agent rode you around to find you a house. Once you sign that contract, you don't tell your agent again. But you're talking with the closing attorney, and you're mad because you got in my office at 10 o'clock, right now, at 10 minutes to 12 for your 12 o'clock closing. And now it's 2 o'clock, I don't have a package, and I'm still waiting for a package. And you're sitting there, you see other people come and go, and you're frustrated. And you understand, the lender's not sent me a package. I get yelled at all the time. We had a closing yesterday, and I didn't get the package, I didn't get the HUD till right at the closing table. That closing attorney sucks. That's the review they write on Google, and all I can say is, I can't give you what I don't have. I don't make the numbers up. I represent the lender in putting these numbers together to give to you. Now, because of the new CD, they're supposed to see it 48 hours in advance. Lenders will send out anything and say they got it out, and then make changes the morning of, the day of, or 2 hours after your closing time. So with that being said, I can't control when my closing takes place. I've tried to put a caveat on that. There have been many times, even on New Year's, I've been in the office on New Year's at 11 o'clock at night closing because they're trying to get that money for this year versus next year. Being in the military, I understand it's a hard concept. Money expires. Banks have money that they use this year, so they're not allocating any for next year. They're trying to get all that money in right now. Or it's the end of the month, and I'm closing loans at 8, 9 o'clock at night. When I didn't have a kid, it was no big deal. Now having a kid at home, I'm saying, why are you coming at 9 o'clock at night? Well, I was closing loans. Who was giving you funding approval? I mean, these are all the questions, but these banks were doing it. Banks out in California, the funds are there. Once they sign everything, you're provisioning to release funds. So people want to close and get it done right then and there. So that was the bad part. I have not stayed that late recently, but we've been in the office 9, 10 o'clock at night, closing loans, waiting for packages to come across because the rate expired, the person's going to town the next day. We've heard every story there was, and that's why I become immune to them. My analogy is, I've never worked for a debt collector. If you ever missed a payment on your American Express, they call you like you're the worst person in the world, and I realize you just missed it. So they think everybody's just lying to them. That's how after a while I become immune as a closing attorney. Okay, what's the story now? Why do we have to close this today? I call it being held hostage. Learn the package is coming. Package is coming. The package is coming. It is 5 o'clock on Friday. I wanted to go home a long time ago. I don't have a package. Oh yeah, we need to push that back till Monday. If you told me that a long time ago, I'd have left at noon today. So that's the bad part of this job. Or people want to say, okay, we signed everything. How long before we get funding approval? I'm waiting on the bank. I'm waiting on a third party. If I tell you it's gonna be 5 minutes, it could be 5 hours. But I will tell you what normally happens is, I'll tell you to go ahead and leave and go get lunch. As soon as you get in the elevator, I'll get it. So I'm gonna try that approach. Okay?